let's resume. So we're on paragraphs 3 and 4. Let's see if we can get through this relatively fast. Knowing me, probably not. Okay, but here. So again, let's figure out what the topic is for paragraph 3. It says, first sentence, each debate also assumed a different relationship to the groups whose histories it concerned. Okay, so we have this key idea of some sort of difference, and we're talking about each debate. So just from that first sentence for paragraph 3, we would expect that we are going to explore what is the difference between these different debates here, between women, origins, what do we got? All right, in its heyday, the origins, so that's sentence 2, talk about that one. Origins debate focused mainly on, I don't know why they capitalized that. That's kind of weird. Yeah, whatever. White attitudes toward Africans rather than on Africans itself. Okay, so what we got is we're going to talk about difference between, debates slash perspectives. And again, on the actual exam, I know you have to have this on the computer, so you can't, do what I'm doing here. But in your note taking with your scrap paper, keep it as basic as possible. Don't write out full sentences. I mean, we talked about this, but your goal here is speed. So something about the differences between the debates, and then we've got, looks like if we're contrasting these things, the origins, I'll just put O. What's going on with this one? It's focused mainly on white versus Africans. So focus on W, not B. Okay? Or I guess, yeah. All right, so what do we got here? With few exceptions, such as Wood's black majority and so on and so on. Okay, remember when we have little commas like that, that means this is just detail. So what we do have is this line that we have exceptions. Okay, so with few exceptions, which were centrally concerned with most works pertaining to the origins debate focused on white art, mostly male of racially. Okay, so we, it's just repeating what we just wrote down here, that the origins debate focused primarily on whites as opposed to blacks or, African American, however they define it. Okay, then notice keyword here, in contrast. So again, an opposite word. So we're going to have something that is, just predictive wise, right? Just seeing that right there, I know that I can anticipate that the women's debate is not going to be just focusing on one thing. It's probably going to be broader. We have a contrast. Although women's historians were interested in the institutions and ideologies contributed to, they were equally concerned with documenting women's experiences. So, sorry, I lost my pen. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we do have this. We have interest in these things that led to subordination. They were equally concerned, so that's a key word right there, equally interested in. So we basically, what we're looking at is something broader, right? We're not just interested in one thing, we're interested in a couple of different things, experiences and institutions, ideologies. So broader, I'll put, experience, institution, ideology, something like that. Okay. All right, let's look over this. As in the origins debate, however, early scholarship on colonial women defined its historical constituency, if I can even read today, narrowly, focusing mainly on affluent white women. Okay, so we have, as in the origins debate, so there's some sort of similarity. However, we've got a focus primarily on affluent white women. Okay. Now, all right, last paragraph. Over time, again, another contrast word. However, let me switch up colors. Let's do red. I feel like changing this around a little bit.
cannot see. Sorry, everybody. I broke my glasses and I can't see my pen. There it is. Okay, so we have another contrast word. However, some initial differences between the approaches taken by scholars about faded. Okay, so we've been talking. Now, just think about what we're doing here. We've been talking about the differences between them, but in paragraph 4, we're saying these differences have faded. Faded, meaning they become more similar. So again, we would expect in what way? The rest of the paragraph should tell us in what way did these two different viewpoints become more synonymous. Let's see what we got. In the 1980s, historians erasing slavery into colonial America shifted their attention to enslaved people. Okay, so we have a shift. There's a verb there. We shifted to enslaved people. Interest in African American culture grew, thereby bringing enslaved women more prominently into view. So it looks like what we've got going on here. What made them become the same was this idea that there's more of a focus on enslaved women. Historians of early American women moved in similar directions during the decade and began to consider the effect of racial difference. Okay, so difference faded. It looks like it was focus on enslaved women. Okay. Now, before we jump into some of the questions, let's do just a quick review of this. So, what we looked at is that the passage starts with talking about, we have got these two different debates. One is focused on women, their status. The second one had to do, and questions about that. And the second had to do with origins of essentially slavery. Where did that come from? What was the racial divide? And questions about that. Where did this come from? What sparked it? Okay, paragraph 2 started talking about the difference between the views. So part A was the women. No, I wrote comp, and I can't even remember what that meant. Oh my gosh. This is another point that I've made in class. It's like when you make your notes, make sure that you can interpret them, right? So let me look quickly over paragraph 2. What does that mean? Oh, comparisons. Sorry. So the focus on this one was the comparison of women, to their counterparts, and then the origin debate was narrowly focused on slavery, just that specifically. And then we talked about, in paragraph 2, is that as time went on, the women debate, kind of remained current, and the origins one kind of died off. And then paragraph 3. Another difference between the debates, origins was the focus on, the sort of the white experience, not African American or black experience. And then part B was, the women's debate ended up being a little bit broader, focusing primarily on, women's experience and their ideology and identity, all that sort of stuff. Okay. And then finally, paragraph 4 was talking about how these two different debates sort of, just sort of faded. The difference went away, that there's a similarity there. They both ended up focusing on enslaved women. Okay. Now, this was a complicated passage. Absolutely. Very difficult. But hopefully you can kind of see this is how you would handle reading through the paragraphs here. Okay? You just want to figure out, what is our topic? What are we basically stating about it? All the things in the yellow. And that is essentially it. So it looks like we're just dealing with a comparison between these, a description and comparison of these two different viewpoints. Author's attitude or purpose seems to be relatively neutral. I did not spot anything where the author was making a case for one or the other. Author seems to be relatively descriptive at this point. So, okay, we're going to end it here. I know this is kind of going long. Feel a little bit bad about it, but nevertheless, it's good practice. Let's end this and try handling the 3 or 4. Actually, I think it's 4 questions related to this.
All right.